Mans, and I'd like to welcome you to the April 4th Coalition show. This is the August 26, 2024 edition of the show. The April 4th mission statement is, we are for workers' rights and collective bargaining rights and are against tax breaks for the rich and corporations who ship our jobs overseas. We support all the articles of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, but as is our custom, we put the emphasis on Article 23. So, Dick, you get to lead us off, and then we go to Susan.
Okay. Section 1. Everyone has the right to work, to free choice of employment, to just and favorable conditions of work, and protection against unemployment.
Everyone, without any discrimination, has the right to equal pay for equal work.
And number 3, everyone who works has the right to just and favorable remuneration, which is any form of compensation, ensuring for himself or herself and his or her family an existence worthy of human dignity and supplemented, if necessary, by other means of social protection.
Number 4, everyone has the right to form and join trade unions for protection of his or her interests.
And as is our custom, we would like to thank Michael Putnam, who is the radio program director for WNNBLP 107.1, for airing the audio portions of our show on Fridays at 6 p.m. And a thank you to the staff here at Northern Berkshire Community Television Corporation, which are currently David Fabiano, Joanne Hurlbut, Nicole Brown, and
Matthew Tucker.
And Matthew Tucker, for their assistance in helping us produce the show. Otherwise, there wouldn't be one. Okay, Dave, we had a very exciting week last week with the DNC convention.
Yeah, the Democratic National Convention took place. I don't know if anybody, did you get to see any of it?
Yeah.
Or?
Yeah,
Some of the parts ran pretty late, but it was,
Just about all of them.
yeah, it was hard for the people that organized it, because originally they had planned for a convention that was going to feature Joe Biden. And then he had that disastrous debate.
Yes, he
so
did.
Then they had to have a remake of the convention because of that debate. They were going to do that. And then a couple weeks after that, 3 weeks away from the convention, then they had to reorganize it because Kamala Harris
became
was
the
nominee. So it was quite a task, because I'm sure that they made commitments for people to speak prior, and then it was kind of hard to tell them no, even though James Taylor got clipped out on the first night. He didn't.
Did he get to play?
I thought I forgot. I thought I fell asleep and missed him because I was looking forward to seeing him. But then I found out the next day that he got cut out.
Oh,
it was unfortunate.
Well, they were trying to save time, right?
But coming in from our perspective as workers' rights and collective bargaining rights, Sean Fain, the president of the UAW, spoke, and we have a clip of his speech that was produced by PBS, and we're going to listen to what Sean Fain had to say to the Democratic National Convention and also to the American people.
Please welcome United Auto Workers President Sean Fain.
Thank you. Good evening, America, and good evening to the people that make this world move, the working class. On behalf of 1 million active and retired members of the UAW, I am honored to support Kamala Harris and Tim Walz to be our next president and vice president. And I want to say thank you to Joe Biden for making history by walking the picket line with the UAW. For the UAW and for working class people everywhere, this election comes down to one question. Which side are you on? On one side, we have Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, who have stood shoulder to shoulder with the working class. On the other side, we have Trump and Vance, two lapdogs for the billionaire class who only serve themselves. So for us in the labor movement, it's real simple. Kamala Harris is one of us. She's a fighter for the working class. And Donald Trump is a scam. That's not just my opinion, that's a fact. All we have to do is look at the track record. When Donald Trump was president, corporate America ran wild. Donald Trump did not bring back the auto industry. When Donald Trump was president, auto plants closed. Trump did nothing. Trump told workers in Lordstown, Ohio, that he would be bringing all the auto jobs back. And Trump did nothing. In 2019, General Motor workers went on strike for 40 days for good jobs and a better life. And Trump did nothing. Talk is cheap. But in 2019, you know who was on the picket line standing shoulder to shoulder with auto workers? I'll give you a clue. Her initials are Kamala Harris. In 2023, who helped bring jobs back to Lordstown, Ohio? Kamala Harris. And in 2024, who will stand with the working class in our fight for justice? Kamala Harris. And that's the difference. Donald Trump is all talk, and Kamala Harris walks the walk. Woo! In the words of the great American poet, Nellie, it's getting hot in here. It's hot in here. It's hot in here because you're fired up and you're fed up, and the American working class is fired up and fed up. The American working class is in a fight for our lives. And if you don't believe me, just last night, blue-collar workers, the UAW members at Cornell University had to walk out on strike for a better life because they're fighting corporate greed. And our only hope is to attack corporate greed head on. Corporate greed turns blue-collar blood, sweat, and tears into Wall Street stock buybacks and CEO jackpots. It causes inflation. It hurts workers. It hurts consumers, and it hurts America. And corporate greed is alive and well in the auto industry. You know, last fall, we achieved life-changing gains in our strike at the Big Three. We even won a commitment to reopen a closed plant not too far from here. We were able to do that thanks to the support of Kamala Harris and Joe Biden and the thousands of auto workers that went on strike. But a year later, one company wants to go back on their commitments in our contract. And let me be clear, Stellantis must keep the promises they made to America in our union contract. And the UAW will take whatever action necessary at Stellantis or any other corporation to stand up and hold corporate America accountable. And when the UAW stands up, we know who stands with us and who stands against us. Donald Trump laughs about firing workers who go on strike. And Kamala Harris stands shoulder to shoulder with workers when they're on strike. And that's the difference between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump the scab. Trump is pushing divide and conquer tactics of the rich. It's the oldest trick in the book. They want to blame the frustrations of working class people. They want to take those frustrations, they want to blame it on race. They want to blame it on LGBTQ plus people. They want to blame it on some destitute and desperate person at the border. They do that because they want working class people to be divided and to focus and keep the focus off the one true enemy, corporate greed. The rich think we're stupid, but working class Americans see this for what it is. This is our generation's defining moment. So I have a question for you. Are you ready to stand up, speak up, and show up and put Kamala Harris and Tim Walz in the White House? We need a defender of the working class in the White House, someone who is one of us and someone who knows how to fight. And that fighter is the next President of the United States, Kamala Harris. Thank you.
Well, he did quite a job there. And I think he's a great spokesperson for the working class.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, he definitely is. And it's important to remember that Kamala is from the working class, because after all, she worked in McDonald's and other places on her way to becoming a district attorney. Yeah. So she's a union member. She's been a union member at some point in her career. And Tim Walz is a union member because he's a teacher. He was a teacher. So they come from the same culture as the union working. So that's why they get it better.
Right.
They don't fall for corporate greed as much.
Right. It's just we need people to stand up. And the reference he made about Donald Trump laughing about firing workers, I think it was a week to 10 days ago, he had an interview with, who's the guy that owns that Tesla factory? What's his name?
Elon Musk.
Elon Musk, the second richest or first richest man in the world. It changes back and forth, but you know, he grew up in South Africa. He has that type of money from South Africa, and he's you know, but he was interviewing Trump, and then Trump complimented him about the unionization that was trying to take place in his factory, and Trump says, and you fired him. That was the greatest thing in the world. When they wanted to go out on strike, you fired him. That was the greatest thing. And Trump and that's illegal. The UAW sued them for saying that, because that's intimidation, because you have the right to go on strike. You know, they are very anti, the Trump administration.
Trump was very.
I like when Barack Obama spoke, he says, "We've seen this movie before," he said, and the sequel's always worse than the first one, you know?
Yeah, it was really good. That was very good of him. We have a second video you wanted to show?
Yeah, want to get that in there, I'm sorry, yeah. We have Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and this was on, we have the C-SPAN version that we want to show her speech to the National Democratic Convention. She's a congresswoman from New York.
New York Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Chicago for your energy. Thank you, Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, for your vision. And thank you, Joe Biden, for your leadership. You know, 6 years ago, I was taking omelet orders as a waitress in New York City. I didn't have health insurance. My family was fighting off foreclosure, and we were struggling with bills after my dad passed away unexpectedly from cancer. Like millions of Americans, we were just looking for an honest shake. And we were tired of a cynical politics that seemed blind to the realities of working people. It was then, only through the miracles of democracy and community, that the good people of the Bronx and Queens chose someone like me to elect them in Congress. And America, in my heart, I know from that same cloth of hope and aspiration, we will also elect Kamala Harris and Tim Walz as President and Vice President of the United States of America. I am here tonight because America has before us a rare and precious opportunity. In Kamala Harris, we have a chance to elect a president who is for the middle class because she is from the middle class. She understands the urgency of rent checks and groceries and prescriptions. She is as committed to our reproductive and civil rights as she is to taking on corporate greed. And she is working tirelessly to secure a ceasefire in Gaza and bringing hostages home. In Kamala Harris, I see a leader who understands. I see a leader with a real commitment to a better future for working families. And Chicago, we have to help her win. Because we know that Donald Trump would sell this country for $1 if it meant lining his own pockets and greasing the palms of his Wall Street friends. And I, for one, am tired of hearing about how a two-bit union buster thinks of himself as more of a patriot than the woman who fights every single day to lift working people out from under the boots of greed, trampling on our way of life. The truth is, Don, You cannot love this country if you only fight for the wealthy and big business. To love this country is to fight for its people, all people, working people, everyday Americans like bartenders and factory workers and fast food cashiers who punch a clock and are on their feet all day in some of the toughest jobs out there. You know, ever since I got elected, Republicans have attacked me by saying that I should go back to bartending. But let me tell you, I'm happy to any day of the week because there is nothing wrong with working for a living. Imagine having leaders in the White House who understand that. Leaders like Kamala and Tim. But Chicago, just because the choice is clear to us does not mean that the path will be easy. Over the next 78 days, we will have to pour every ounce, every minute, every moment into making history on November 5th. But we cannot send Kamala and Tim to the White House alone. Together, we must also elect strong Democratic majorities in the House and in the Senate so that we can deliver on an ambitious agenda for the people. Because if you are a working parent trying to afford rent and childcare, Kamala is for you. If you are a senior who had to go back to work because your retirement didn't stretch far enough, Kamala is for you. If you're an immigrant family just starting your American story, Kamala is for you. America, when we knock on our neighbor's door, organize our communities, and elect Kamala Harris to the presidency on November 5th, we will send a loud message that the people of this nation will not go back. We choose a new path and open the door to a new day, one that is for the people and by the people. Thank you. Thank you very much. God bless. God bless you all.
Wow, I thought that was fantastic. I mean, that quote is I, for one, am tired of hearing about how a two-bit union buster thinks of himself as more of a patriot than the woman who fights every single day to lift working people out from under the boots of greed, trampling out on our way of life. You know, she
nailed it.
Definitely nailed it.
She nailed it. Everybody, you know, I think when I watched it, just about every speaker nailed it. You know, getting the point across. You know, and the goal is to shrink Trump, to not make him look so big, and because he's obviously not so big and powerful. Because if he had been, he wouldn't have lost in 2020.
Right. He's all worried about crowd size. He had the nerve to say that and compare the January 6th crowd that he addressed that went on to ransack the Capitol. He compared it to Martin Luther King's March on Washington when he did the I Have a Dream speech. He said
But with him, we have a nightmare.
We absolutely have a nightmare with him. And he is still dangerous because he has he doesn't like limits on him. So he has no respect for history, tradition, law, anything. it's whatever he wants. He's truly a man-child when you think about it. It's got to be what his way or no way.
You also said something about there's going to be a bloodbath if he doesn't get elected. And I thought that was terrible. And the other thing is that he doesn't have any compassion at all, zero amount.
It's unfortunate that he lived such a life in his childhood that he didn't get the attention that he needed. And now he just craves for attention, and he has to have the biggest crowds
in the world and everything else.
Not only is it someone that has a lot of, not to say that I'm perfect or I don't have problems or whatever, but his problems just seem to be really big, and they're foisted upon everybody else. And to add to that, his problems, he has the desperation that if he doesn't win this election, he could be going to jail for the rest of his life.
He does feel that pressure, but I don't think they're going to put an ex-president who's 78 years old in jail personally. I mean, especially with his stalling tactics that he's got. The one that he would get him would be Florida, but
well, he has a sentencing coming up.
He does on September 18th, and I'll be curious to see if they do house arrest for him or just put a bracelet on him and say, okay, go off and run for president.
I don't, at the Democratic convention, they also had the Central Park Five. They had 4 of the Central Park Five people that, were accused of rape. Donald Trump spent $85,000 to put ads in the paper that they should reinstate the death penalty and put those young boys to death when they were convicted, but then later they were found to be innocent and were let go. And he has yet to recant that. Those guys spent, from 7 to 14 years in prison. So I mean, I remember we had Gil Scott Heron talked with Richard Nixon. A lot of people, they steal a loaf of bread or they do this, they get San Quentin. Nixon ripped off the entire country and he got San Clemente.
Yes, he did, right. And that's one of the glaring faults of our inequality, and Trump is unfortunately in that class. Dick, you put down this mail-in voter registration form to remind people that they need to register to vote?
Yes, we need to get more people registered to vote because it just can't win this election. We have to, we have to win this.
This has to be a landslide.
Yeah, we really have to win it. We have to get people who have never voted before to get off of their seats and get out there and vote. So you can go online, you can go down to City Hall, you can go to the Registry of Motor Vehicles, you can sign up and register to vote. But if you're eligible to vote, you should be registered, and then you should go and vote.
And remember, you can't complain if you didn't participate.
Right.
Because you contributed to the problem rather than the solution.
And if you're not a registered voter, you can't run for office either.
No, you can't. You have to be registered to do all of that. We have we have quite a little bit of time left. We have about 1 minute, 8 seconds left.
Well, I'm glad we have new clocks here. And
I'm going to remind the people that we have a primary on September 23rd. And then remember to register to vote for November.
Power to the people.
And we will not be here September 6th, so power to the people.
Power to the people.
Labor Day next week.
There's power in the factory, power in the land, power in the hand of the worker. But it all amounts to nothing if together we don't stand. There is power in our union. Now the lessons of the past were all learned with workers' blood. Mistakes of the bosses we must pay for. From the cities and the farmlands to trenches full of mud. War's always been the bosses.